Hey everybody, first real instructional video for the Headrush in a long time. It has been a crazy summer between what I do for a real living and then the band schedule has just been insane. Raising a 2-year-old, all of those things. But I can finally get back into making a whole bunch of videos, and I've got some really cool stuff on deck. Starting with this video actually. So if you have watched any of my videos, especially my very first video about the Jason Sadites method for just kind of some post EQ and compression to help modeling played back through an FRFR speaker, just kind of sound and more importantly feel more real, more like the real thing playing through a real amp. So I've been a big fan of that, but like a lot of guitar players, I grow and learn a lot and very quickly, especially with all the live scenario testing I've been able to do over the summer with that concept, and then eventually moving on to going mostly to straight to front of house to using a solid state power amp into my two orange 212 cabs, which is my current rig. Which I'm also moving on again from, but that's going to be for another video. I have bought myself a nice tube amp that I'll be using the Headrush through. I'm not sure if I'm going 4-cable method yet, or if I'm just going to use the power section. I bought a JCM 2000 DSL, the 100 watter, so plenty of tube power on tap there. But so that kind of ties into what I wanted to talk about in this video. I have moved on from the Jason Sadites method with the parametric EQ and compression at the end of your signal chain. So still using a method with parametric EQing involved, but something totally different. So some of you might know I'm a member on the famous or infamous the Gear Page forums, and I just learn a lot there, mostly lurk. I post here and there. But one of the best posts I've come across in the last year or so was actually by a member by the name of James Freeman, titled, I've got it pulled up right here. I'm going to do some reading from this post, mostly because, to tell you the truth, I don't understand all of the science and physics behind this. There's people like James Freeman in the world that understand that stuff, and my desire is to just make use of it to have cool guitar sounds. So I'll put a link to this thread specifically in the description of the video, but the thread is called Helix, my solid state power amp tips. So what this entails is kind of, if you're using a solid state power amp, whether class A, B, like a lot of the stuff that I forget the name right now, but the Fractal guys are big on this company. I'm sure I'll think of it at some point in this video, but say just any kind of like a solid state class D power amp, the Seymour Duncan power stages, that kind of thing. Or yeah, so those are class D, and then you've got something class AB, like the orange one, the one that Orange makes. But basically, this is how James Freeman himself describes what we're going to do here. So this is very useful if you want to simulate a tube power amp like the Mesa 290 or standard long tail phase inverter plus EL34/6L6 GC. Basically tube power amps, like the kinds you would find in Marshalls, Soldanos, Mesas, PVs, with infinite headroom, no distortion, with a flat hi-fi solid state power amp to be used with modelers in their preamp models. So basically what he's saying here is he's going, what happens when you have a tube amp connected to a cab, that tube amp's power section has a certain way of, I guess you could say, talking to the speaker cabinet that it's hooked to. This results in what is called an impedance curve. and the cab almost kind of talks back, has to do with how the speakers move and all this stuff. And basically it has a lot to do mostly really with the bookend frequencies, lows and highs. So what's happening and what we'll be doing here is you're kind of emulating for the most part presence, but also you'll see bass. We're going to get down into that 100 hertz range. So this is something Class D, or really all solid state power amps. They don't do this. They don't give you this. So we're going to use a parametric EQ to kind of create a static version of this very real-world dynamic interaction between tube amp and guitar speaker cabinet. So something that's important to note here, the reason why this is going to be useful, especially for us Headrush guys who seem to have a lot less options and parameters on tap than, say, Fractal and Helix products, is in the Helix, you can separate preamp and power amp models from one another. We can't do that in the Headrush, unfortunately. Hopefully that's something that will come soon. To tell you the truth, I had asked this question on the Headrush forums to find out if there's any separate preamp and power amp emulation even going on in the Headrush's amp models, and I've gotten no response so far. So hopefully they get back to me soon. It's been about a month now. And then, so the idea would be, say, on the Helix, is to turn off the power amp modeling, because this parametric EQ is going to give you your power amp modeling. So we don't have that option in the Headrush, but this method is going to give us really great results regardless. And then you've got the Fractal, the Axe3, which takes that a step even further. And if you go and watch some of Leon Todd's videos, you can actually see a few moments where he shows you how to change the impedance curves. You can go through a whole list of them, and you could the Fractal products actually have these in a selectable format, and you can change them. Because another important thing to remember about what I'm going to show you is that this whole impedance curve theory is it's going to be different for every amp and every cabinet that it's hooked up to in the real world. So the one I'm going to show you is very specific. I'll read it off again here too. It is so James Freeman captured these measurements from a tube power amp that he has, which is based on JCM 800 topology. Great. That's like my favorite amp to use with my band. So that kind of works out. So this is specifically a JCM 800 topology type tube amp, speaking to, I think he's got some kind of cab with vintage 30s in it. So that's what this specific curve is going to be. It is James Freeman's power amp into James Freeman's cab. This is what all JCM 800s sound like into all cabs. This is going to be different. But just this one example of it is really, really helpful in the Headrush. And I'm going to just stop talking about it right now and get the Headrush pulled up. And we're going to hear some sounds, some comparisons. So hang tight. All right, so let me just show you quickly what I've got going on in this rig here. I am using the Headrush's JCM 800 100 watt model. Not that it's super important here, but these are the settings on it. You can apply this to any amp model that you want. As always, we're using the free Leon Todd impulse responses, the LTTB Mix 2 with greenback speakers in it. Just a little bit of room reverb going on, mix 10%. Not a whole lot of crazy stuff there. So won't get too much more into that. But let me just show you what this sounds like on its own without the speaker impedance curve EQ applied. So that sounds like this. Alright, now without even really showing you what it's doing, let me show you the difference here. You're going to notice it definitely gets louder because we're boosting frequencies, so that's what happens, but just the emphasis of the frequencies is really important here. So enormous difference, right? So just really quickly, I'll show you what's going on here. You can find these settings on page 1 of the gear page thread that I'm talking about. The more you read on James's favorite settings, he kind of changed them around a little bit, but this is sort of what I would think of as the default. And just to remember too, this is something that's kind of like a starting point for you as well. You can change these values. What I would mess with the most is probably the decibel values rather than the actual frequencies. But anyway, so we've got nothing going on in the first band. There's no need to have anything happening there. I could have used it, but it doesn't matter. So band 1, nothing going on. In band 2 of the parametric EQ, all right, we're hitting that 100 hertz range. Which is as low as that one goes too. So, and then we're boosting 100 hertz by 6 decibels with a Q of 1.5. So all 3 of those are really important. So that's the first thing going on. So that's pushing the bass that a tube amp normally tries to push out into a speaker cabinet. Band number 2, it's supposed to be 3K, 3000 hertz, but the dials on here don't really let you exactly get to that, but 3000 and 2.6 is close enough. So just try to get around 3K, right? And then that one is being boosted by 6 decibels as well. And we are at a Q of 0.2. Now, when you read the thread, it's supposed to be a Q of 0.1, but you'll see the Headrush parametric EQ doesn't go down to 0.1, but 0.2, you know what? It's all close enough. We're fine here, so all good. So anyway, 3K is kind of, I think to me it's the most interesting, most important part of the mid-range of guitar. And then moving on to band 4, now we're in the presence region. This goes all the way up to 15K. Again, we're close enough. And with a Q of 0.2, it's supposed to be 0.1, but we can't quite get there. And we're boosting that by 6 decibels. So basically that's what's happening. Now, before I go on, the way I implement this is actually through the Headrush's global EQ. I like to have this setting on just everything that I play through. The reason I'm not using the global EQ is because I'm recording the Headrush through USB, and the global EQ does not affect the USB, which is why I've chosen to make a parametric EQ block to show you this on. But ideally, I apply this to the global settings. Let me show you that real quick. So there you have it. They're all off now because they don't matter anyway. You can ignore the 80 hertz band, but I'm doing the exact same thing right here on the global EQ. You just can't hear it through USB audio. One of the benefits of that is it saves you a block of parametric EQ. You don't have to put that in your rig, so you can put something else useful in your rig instead. So another major benefit too, compared to my old method using the Jason Sadites method, is I don't feel the need to have a compressor on this anymore with these settings. So again, another block saved. But anyway, Just checking my note here real quick. 1 second. I think I've covered mostly what I've wanted to cover. So let's just hear some more comparison videos. I'm going to kick a boost in on this JCM 800. And so we're going to hear it without. And with. So much more emphasis on the highs that are naturally present there when you're playing through a tube amp, and just a whole lot more oomph in the lows to me. Just those that thing that we love about tube amps. And so just one other important note too. This is supposed to be used through a solid state power amp into actual guitar cabinets, right? That's what this whole design is based around. But so I did that for the entire summer, played live shows with it, and everything just sounded killer through it. And then I had to go front of house one day, and I just figured maybe I can try this through my trusty Headrush FRFR 112 over here. Because at the end of the day, this is just a Class D power amp hooked up to its own speaker. So it's sort of like my standalone power amp. I use the QSC GX5 in a rack. And then, not a guitar cab, but I've got my impulse responses that are somewhat emulating, 99.99% of what a guitar cab should sound like. Plus a mic and all that stuff, but and it just sounded amazing straight through front of house that way too. It doesn't have to apply to just a separate solid state power amp into a guitar cab. To me, this sounds even amazing. How most people are using their modelers, which is XLR from your modeler straight to front of house. Just killer stuff. So let's hear just a little bit more. I'm going to turn that off again here. But so this is without. And with. Right, so just enormous difference there. I'm going to bring the video to an end here. I've pretty much showed you what I needed to show you on this. This has completely replaced my earlier method from my very first video. Guitar players are always changing things, and that's awesome. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. So give this a shot, make it work. Try it through the global EQ, which will get you even more accurate, actually, because through the global EQ, you can actually hit that 0.1 mark on the Q values, which is cool. Leave the high and low band settings on shelf, and yeah, that's it. Leave the level flat. You're not changing anything there. So I hope that this was helpful. I might make another short video with way less talking and just some more sound clip comparisons with different kinds of amps, not just the JCM 800. Thanks for tuning in, guys, and enjoy.